Okay, good morning to everyone who is joining us. My name is Kerrie Niemeier, and I am the Director of Sales and Marketing for Wellsbury Tours. And I have a very special guest joining us this morning. He lives in Ecuador, and this is Marcel Perkins, working with Latin Trails. And we're thrilled to be working in a partnership with him for our Galapagos Islands and Ecuador tour. And I am going to turn it over to Marcel. We have lots of exciting things to share with you about this very unique itinerary. So it is leaving in January. It leaves January 18th. It's a 25-day tour. We are spending 13 days exploring all the natural wonders of Ecuador, and then we'll be flying to the Galapagos and spending 7 days and 7 nights sailing around on a private yacht. So it's an absolutely beautiful ship. We're going to talk all about that this morning, sailing around, of course, the very unique and fantastic Galapagos Islands. So pretty big bucket list trip. We are only taking 15 people. So it is a halfway sold out. We have 8 seats left. So we're going to talk about all of those wonderful things this morning. One other thing I like to point out, it is an activity level 3. So for this particular tour, you would be required to sign the waiver that comes with the tour itinerary. And I'm going to let Marcel sort of take it away. And then if you have any questions, please go ahead, put those in the chat box. We'll try and answer any questions towards the end. And also at the very end, everyone who registered for this webinar this morning, I am going to put your name in a draw, and we're going to draw for a book giveaway, a fantastic book giveaway. It's a handbook that you can actually take with you on this tour, paperback copy of all the being able to identify all the fabulous flora, fauna, and animals that you will be encountering on the Galapagos Islands. So with all that said, welcome, Marcel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Kerrie. Hi, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for having me as a guest here. I'm truly honored. And I'm also excited about this trip. You're going to be visiting some of my favorite places in the whole world. So, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. I grew up actually in Ecuador. I was born in the U.S., but we moved to Ecuador when I was 7 years old. It's my mother's country, so I am fully bilingual in English and Spanish. And I've had the privilege of living in Ecuador most of my life, and still live there, and having my family grow in this beautiful country. Right now, we have in front of us a view of the Quilotoa Lake. This is one of the attractions that will be on the tour, and we'll go through the itinerary and the different things you'll see. Now, Ecuador is considered an off-the-beaten-path destination in South America, and of course, the Galapagos Islands are one of the main highlights. We're going to talk a little bit about everything that you can see in this beautiful country. Ecuador is one of the smallest countries in South America, and spending 23 days and 22 nights, although it seems quite a few days, will actually allow you to see just enough of the country to be on the surface even, because it has so much packed in it. But you will be seeing some of the main highlights. Here we have a picture of the Cotopaxi volcano, and of course, the Sleeping Lions rock in the Galapagos Islands. Now, talking about the tour, the arrival is in Quito. This is the capital city. It's in the Andes. It's at 2,800 meters. Don't fret. We'll talk about altitude and how to cope with it. This is your arrival. Now, your first hotel in Quito is the Patio Andaluz. It's a beautiful colonial property. It's called Andaluz, well, because it's an Andalusian patio that you have right here in the middle of the hotel. So it's a Spanish style. Now, Ecuador was a colony of Spain in the 1800s, before the 1800s. Now, all that is part of the heritage where you have a blend of local indigenous culture of the Andes blended with Spanish architecture. And you'll see that throughout the hotel. It's boutique, it's intimate. You'll have a sense of destination in every property you'll be staying at throughout this trip. It's half a block from the main plaza, and the staff is extremely friendly. This is the main plaza of Quito. You'll have on your day 2, you'll have a city tour. This will be within walking distance of the hotel. You're visiting some of the main attractions in the city, the Compañía Church, which is covered in gold, the Panecillo Hill, which is an iconic hill in the city of Quito, and the Equator Line, with some experiments at the Inti Ñan Museum, where you'll realize this is an important fact, is that you will weigh at least 1 pound less at the equator. So that's going to be exciting for a lot of people as well. Then from Quito, we're going to go north into the northern part of the Andes. It's called the province of lakes, Imbabura. We will visit the San Pablo Lake. And in the backdrop, you see Imbabura volcano. Now, we're going to go also into one of the most beautiful reserves that Ecuador has. It's El Ángel Ecological Reserve. Here we'll stay at a small mountain lodge, Polilepis Lodge, and it's surrounded by a forest under the same name, the Polilepis Forest. It's almost like a fairy tree area. And here we have a special microclimate with a unique plant life. That's the frailejón. It's found in this part of the Andes only. And there's mountain lakes and some nice hiking and walking opportunities. Also horseback riding. You can relax there as well. And we'll be spending an extra night at the lodge as well. So you'll be able to really soak in this part of the Andes with beautiful scenery and friendly people. Now, from El Ángel, we'll start going back towards making our way back in the Andes southbound. And on the way, we'll stop at Otavalo. Now, Otavalo is where you find the indigenous tribe by the same name. They were originally Metimaes. They say the people from Otavalo were brought from Bolivia to colonize the northern part of what's Ecuador today in the time of the Incas. So we'll learn about this beautiful tribe and about their customs. We'll be staying at a really beautiful property, Pinsaki. It's an old hacienda. Hacienda means working farm, and it's been converted to a boutique hotel. It's family owned. It's owner run. You'll find the owners there. They'll be engaged in the property. They'll be telling you the story about the place. It has beautiful gardens. You can walk around in the mornings and afternoons. So it's a great place to relax. And then we'll have a treat at the Otavalo market where we'll meet the people from Otavalo. Here, they're very friendly. It's a market. They're not pushy about you buying. So you can actually go into the stalls, look at things, pick things up, ask them about what they do, how it's made, and you can bargain. That's the beautiful part of it. Otavalo, the people there are known to like to bargain, and this is how things are done. And you can definitely interact with the locals. And then, of course, we'll head back to Quito. We'll spend another night at Patio Andaluz. The next day, we'll be going into one of the most important wildlife areas on the planet, the Amazon basin. Now, it'll be a 30-minute flight from Quito to El Coca. That's the name of the city. Here, we'll board a dugout canoe, and it'll have a motor on it. It'll be a 2-hour ride approximately on the canoe to make it to the lake. The lake allows us to get into the lodge. Now, once we arrive at the lake, it's also a 2-hour paddle boat ride, but it's actually an attractive ride because we'll be looking for birds, caimans, and wildlife across the lagoon onwards to the lodge. So no noise on the way in, a very peaceful setting. It's a blackwater lake where there's caimans and there's other wildlife surrounding it, and the lodge is right at it. Now, within the lodge area, we'll have night walks as well and day walks. There's a canopy tower so we can have a look at the rainforest from above. But there's also several trails that we can walk along. These are flat ground. We're at sea level, well, not sea level, 400 meters above sea level when we're in the Amazon of Ecuador. Now, this is a secret forest. The wildlife is there. We might not see it, but we will listen to the birds. We'll see insects. And if we're lucky, we might see some mammals and primates. Now, on day 9, actually, of our trip, and day 3 at the lodge, we will visit a parrot clay lake. This is one of the largest parrot clay lakes in the Amazon. And everything is weather dependent, but you see thousands of parakeets here. Now, we'll also be visiting an indigenous community, and they'll invite us to try out some of the delicacies they make. A lot of the food is manioc based, so it's organic. They have fish. It's wrapped in special leaves from the Amazon and all the seasoning there. And of course, some more exotic things that are optional to try. And there will be a box lunch that will be taken with us as well for those who do not want to try something too exotic. But again, it's very healthy food, and it's an opportunity to share with one of the tribes of the Amazon. These are Quechua-speaking people, but they do know Spanish as well. So if you can brush up with some Spanish before your trip, it will actually allow you to interact a little bit more. Then we make our way back to El Coca to fly to Quito. Now, the way back is also a trip. We will be going through the lake again, so we'll be paddling, but also on a dugout canoe. And along the way, there is there's bird life. We'll be on the river, and then back to Quito. A dinner and overnight in Quito, and also the opportunity to relax there. Then Quito to Cotopaxi. Well, we'll be taking on the famous Avenue of the Volcanoes. It was given this name by Alexander von Humboldt. He was a German explorer and scientist that was the first to document the Andes, and we'll be reaching the Cotopaxi National Park. Now, this is a short drive. It's about 1.5 to 2 hours from the city of Quito, but we will be visiting the park area, the Limpio Pungo Lake, and we'll go to a rose farm. This is one of the organic rose plantations. Ecuador has been known to be one of the largest exporter of roses around the planet. And the roses at the equator have been cultivated to grow. Sometimes you have roses that have a stem that's 1.5 meters long. So there's different sizes, and there's even edible roses. We'll learn all about roses as well, and about the natural area here. This is our hotel near Cotopaxi. It's right inside, at the outskirts of the park, and you have a direct view of the volcano. Now, weather dependent, we'll be able to see it, but also there's nature around the lodge. You have some nice walks and nice trails within the property as well, with highland vegetation, which is totally different from anything else you've seen throughout this trip. Then we will be going onwards to the Quilotoa Lake. This is a crater lake. It is a volcano that collapsed, and the ice at the top formed this lake within the crater. So this eruption happened about 800 years ago. We'll be at 3,900 meters. This is one of the highest points, well, together with Cotopaxi, when we reach the refuge, that we will be at. Now, we won't be doing strenuous hiking here, but there will be the opportunity to walk around the area, meet the local community, the people at Sumbawa. They have a local market, and you'll see the traditions of the people of this area of the Andes with beautiful scenery as well. And then we'll be reaching Riobamba. The city of Riobamba, will have a short tour of it, was actually where the first capital of Ecuador was before Quito. This is where the first constitution was signed, and it's a colonial city, well preserved and very nice. Then from Riobamba on day 13, we'll be heading south towards Nisag and Guamote. Guamote is the town with the highest indigenous population in Ecuador, people from the Andes. These are part of the Puruay tribe, one of the original tribes that was actually conquered by the Incas in Ecuador. Now, Ecuador was not fully conquered by the Incas because the Spaniards came once the Incas were here about 30 to 50 years. So you don't have large Inca ruins in Ecuador. You have a lot of pre-Inca tribes that still prevail, but you do have Inca ruins like Inca Pirca. It's a temple that is dedicated to the moon, but it's half Inca, half Cañari, and we'll learn about that as well. So this was actually one of the last Inca settlements where they were actually able to establish themselves. We will, on this day, we'll have the treat of visiting one of the local animal markets where animals are bartered. Bartering means they'll be trading, sheep for cows, or, on the small, there's the large animal market and the small animal market. So there's guinea pig, there's the local chickens, and all this is traded by the local people. Then we'll be going onwards to Cuenca. Cuenca is perhaps, in my opinion at least, one of the most beautiful cities in Ecuador. It's a colonial city. It's a UNESCO heritage city, just like Quito. There's the main plaza, and most of the hotels and properties and restaurants in Cuenca are in the old town. So you have a very large old town, very walkable as well. And this is where you will see the process of making straw hats. Now, we've put Panama Hat Factory because a lot of people understand what it is, but the real name is Ecuador Paja Toquilla Hat. You'll learn how they're made. You'll meet the weavers of the hats, and you'll experience this beautiful city. Here we have a picture of the Cathedral of Cuenca by the main Calderon Park. After visiting Cuenca in the morning, we're going to head to Cajas National Park. Cajas is the Spanish word for box. These are box lakes that we'll find in the park. There's about 200 box lakes. These are mountain lakes, and basaltic rock surrounds them. So they're surrounded by this, and we'll be heading through the Cajas National Park and onwards towards the city of Guayaquil. On the way from Cajas, we'll descend to the lowland coast of Ecuador. Guayaquil's by the coast at sea level. Now we'll be passing by, you'll see from this scarce vegetation area in Cajas and all these beautiful lakes that we will have an opportunity to walk around. We'll be going through a change in vegetation and seeing the vegetation of the coast, where you'll see plantain, banana plantations, cacao plantations along the way, and tropical vegetation will be taking place on our way into the city of Guayaquil. Guayaquil is the largest port. We'll stay at a hotel close to the airport. It's a nice property, Oro Verde. It's has a great breakfast and a great place to start our day before we fly to the Galapagos Islands. Now, the flight to the Galapagos Islands from Guayaquil is 1.5 hours. It's a commercial flight. We'll be landing at the island of Baltra. We'll cross the Itabaca Channel, and the first activity we will have is visiting the giant tortoises in the highlands of Santa Cruz Island. These tortoises are in the wild. Now, one thing, and a tip for travelers taking the trip is that, on this first day, anything that you need, any medicines or anything, you keep it in your backpack. I'm assuming that everybody here is going to jump on the opportunity to book this. So you keep your necessities in the backpack, because you will see your luggage once you arrive at the boat. So there'll be a few hours that, you have to have things with you. But fret not, this will be advised as well, because you'll have a tour leader with you from Wells Gray, and they're experienced in letting you know everything. Now, this is our boat that we'll be boarding on the first day and the first night. It's the Seaman Journey. It's a 16-passenger catamaran. Here you have a picture of one of the matrimonial cabins with a queen-size bed. We also have twin cabins. The boat has indoor and outdoor dining areas. There is a chef on board who's cooking only for 16 guests. So dietary restrictions and all that will be taken into account. We have a great friendly crew. This is actually Karen. She's one of our first mates on board. And just to, a spoiler alert here, she's going to be promoted in a few years to be the first female captain in Galapagos. So there's a lot going on board the Seaman Journey as a catamaran, and talking about inclusion in travel. It has a beautiful sun deck with day beds. Some of the top guides in the Galapagos. The itinerary is beautiful. It's a full 7 days, but it's 7 nights exploring the western side of the archipelago. The Seaman Journey is eco-friendly. It has a fuel processing, one of the lowest fuel per capita on any sailing cruise around the world, actually, because it's a light catamaran, but also very comfortable with private bathrooms in each cabin. Now, some of the locations on the itinerary, we'll look at the map a little bit further down in the presentation, but we'll be visiting Mangle Point and Punta Moreno on the second day of our cruise. Now, take into account that the navigation on the Seaman Journey is done by night. So while you're sleeping, we'll be taking the longer crossings. Now, to get out to this area, it's going to be about an 8 to 9 hour navigation. So we will be arriving, and every day it will be similar, except for the first and final days of the cruise, where the longer navigations take place. And the days in between, the navigations are shorter at night, between 3 to 4 hours, or sometimes 2 hours, in some cases even 1 hour. But we will be sleeping on board, and the navigations, as I said, are done at night. But the docking of the yacht is during the daytime, is in small bays. Here we have Mangle Point, where you will be seeing Galapagos penguins, marine iguanas, the famous flightless cormorant. It's on Fernandina Island. Now, our itinerary, we're privileged to be one of the only yachts that will be visiting Fernandina Island 2 times. Very few yachts are able to do that. It's done because of planning with the national park and really having all the permits in place. Then we visit Urbana Bay and Tagus Cove on Isabela Island, the western side. Great snorkeling is in this area. There's possibility of spotting whales, orcas in the channels, but also swimming inside the bays with sea lions, marine iguanas, penguins even, and of course beach landings, hiking. Now, Tagus Cove is a famous visitor site that you actually walk all the way up to a lookout point where you see a lake that has been formed inside a crater. You have pirate graffiti because this is where pirates would hang out. They say that this is one of the hideouts for Sir Francis Drake when he was ransacking all the Spanish galleons. Then we go out to Espinosa Point in the Galapagos. This is one of the top visitor sites in most remote areas, wildlife areas on the planet. Marine iguanas, blue-footed boobies, flightless cormorants, Galapagos penguins. And this is where BBC filmed some of the, the sightings of the racer snakes chasing the lava lizards. There's a lot of movie scenery in those videos. You don't see that many racer snakes. They won't be chasing anybody, and they're not dangerous. But you will be seeing a lot of Sally Lightfoot crabs, great scenery, walking on lava. And of course, you'll have Galapagos hawks on the lookout for baby sea lions, well, depending on the time of the year as well. So a lot of wildlife action in the Galapagos. Then we'll be going on to Santiago Island. It's one of the central islands. Here we have 2 visitor sites on day 19 of our trip, Playa Espumilla and Puerto Egas. Great snorkeling. Sea turtles are able to be spotted while you're swimming. Pelicans. Now, one thing about this part of Santiago Island and Puerto Egas, here you not only find sea lions, but also seals, fur seals. They're a little bit different. It's a subspecies. And they're a little bit more playful, a little bit smaller, and you'll be able to see them here as well. They're endemic to the Galapagos, meaning that you can't find them anywhere else. Here you'll find land iguanas, but also marine iguanas. It is the scenery on this island is incredible as well, with all these formations. Then we have a treat on day 20. RABIDA Island, a red sand beach. This is formed by volcanic eruption. So it's one of the, you'll be seeing black sand beaches on Santiago, and the next day, red sand beaches. Now, off RABIDA, you have sea lions, you have a flamingo lagoon, and some really great snorkeling. There's a cliff you can swim along, and you'll be finding all types of colorful tropical fish, manta rays, small white-tip reef sharks, sea lions. Then Chinese Hat, another island that is iconic because of the form of it. It actually does look like a Chinese hat, floating in the water. Here you have lava fields, but you also have Vesuvian flowers, which are bright red along the trail, and they make a beautiful contrast with the bay. There's a channel for snorkeling there, so very calm waters for exploring this part. Then on day 21, we go to Sullivan Bay. This is the largest lava field we'll be visiting. This is Pahoehoe lava, and you can see fossilized animals and remnants of plants from one of the largest lava flows in the Galapagos that are actually inside the cracks, and you can see the different colors of lava. Learn about this. A great site for snorkeling as well. Possibility of snorkeling with penguins also. And Bartolome, if you're able to climb those 1,800 steps all the way up, you're bound to see one of the most beautiful sceneries. And you actually, what we see in the background are lava flows from Santiago Island. You have and even in the back, you'll be able to see Isabela Island. So actually, from this viewpoint, you can see you have a great view of many islands around the Galapagos, the scenery, Half Moon Bay, Pinnacle Rock, great snorkeling here as well. And really one of the most important and most photographed sites of the Galapagos. Our final day, Bachas Beach, a white sand beach, great snorkeling. You have flamingos in the lagoon, Sally Lightfoot crabs, and then onwards to the airport. You will be missing the Galapagos as soon as you are off the boat, and as you're going back to the plane. Make sure to bring extra memory cards. In average, every time I go, and I've been there many times on and off the boats, I go through 2,000 photos easily. So, and I go through 1 or 2 memory cards. So that's one of my tips of advice. Sunscreen also is important. We're at the equator. We don't want to get sunburned here. We finally fly to Guayaquil, and we will transfer out from here to our international flight. This is the Guayas River, and this is the Las Peñas neighborhood in Guayaquil. It's a beautiful colonial part of the city, also historic. And that's a little bit about our trip. Now, this is where the destinations are in mainland Ecuador. the city of Quito is a little bit in the northern part of Ecuador, right by the equator. Our itinerary starts in Quito. It goes onwards north to El Ángel, and then we make our way back to Ibarra and Otavalo. Then we go back through Quito, and we fly to the city of Coca in the Amazon, and La Selva Lodge, the lodge we're visiting. One thing to take into account, it has a spa, so it's a very nice luxury property. We arrive in Coca, and then we go by dugout canoe on the river and paddle into one of the lakes that's right by Yasuni National Park. From here, we fly back to Quito, and then we go back southbound to the Avenue of the Volcanoes, to Cotopaxi, the Quilotoa Crater Lake on the way, and to the city of Riobamba. Then we go south to Cuenca. On the way, we're passing by the Inca ruins, then to Guayaquil, and from here we fly to the Galapagos Islands. This is our routing in the Galapagos. We board the yacht at Baltra. This is the airport. We cross the island of Santa Cruz, and then we go all the way into the western side of the archipelago. This is the most remote area of the Galapagos, so we're really in for a treat on this trip. It's a 7-night program, visiting some of the more remote and uninhabited islands of the archipelago. And regarding the flights in the airplanes, these are commercial flights, so you're not going on small aircraft, you're going on commercial aircraft into the Amazon, and as well into the Galapagos. We are flying with Avianca on this trip, but we have 2 other airlines that fly there as well, just for information. Recommendations for altitude. Well, to prepare for this trip, you get the usual amount of sleep, you don't eat heavy meals a few days before, and not much alcohol. During the trip, lots of water. That's the most important tip. If we stay hydrated, we avoid alcohol and tobacco, and we eat some carbohydrates. So yes, there's yummy food throughout the trip as well. Ecuadorian food is actually very healthy. It's farm to table. Everything is slow cooked, so you will be enjoying that. Then what's included in the program? Well, all transfers on arrival. You will be having a tour leader from Wells Gray, an expert. And of course, all excursions that we talked about are included: Spanish, English-speaking local guides, all entrance fees, transportation, all meals are included. Now, there's some things that can be added as extra, but that you can go over that at the time of booking. And that's a little bit about this trip. I want to invite you to actually ask as many questions as possible. I'm happy to answer them. And on to you, Kerrie.
Yes, thank you so much, Marcel. Wow, it's a pretty incredible journey. I've traveled through Peru and just have not been to Ecuador, but just hearing about the Incas and the Andes and seeing the colorful people and the traditions, there are so many highlights on this particular tour. I know we've done this tour in the past, and our tour director, Marion, took some absolutely phenomenal pictures at the La Selva Lodge. That's where that huge nature reserve is. Just beautiful, and where you meet the tribe and try all those foods. I think that's why we love to travel, is really immersing in the people and the culture. So this is a really amazing trip. And then after you experience Ecuador, you go to the amazing Galapagos. So I don't know if it gets any better. We do have a question in our chat box. A lady did ask, or someone, I'm not sure who asked, about if you have never been in a canoe, would that be a problem? So that would be at the La Selva Lodge. Do you want to answer that, Marcel?
Yeah, absolutely. It is actually, there's no effort on our side as travelers in the canoe. The dugout canoe that takes us from the town of Coca, where the airport where we land, to the takeout point at the lake is motorized. So we have life vests, and we just sit there comfortably as we are whisked there. And then once we arrive at the lake, the canoes are paddled by staff from the lodge and native people from the local community. So we also, again, there's no experience needed, just to have our ears open and our eyes open to see the wildlife that's around us.
Okay, that's great. Kate, we just have another question. How closely are you watching the political situation in Ecuador?
Well, we're on the ground in Ecuador. We are partners with Wells Gray, but I am part of the ground operator that's in Ecuador, Latin Trails. We're a local company. I live in the city of Quito, and we're monitoring on a daily basis. I know that there's been a political unrest in Ecuador. Right now, there's a call for early elections, and we're in the final stage of that. And once that is come through, we believe that there will be it will be back to calm. These are things that are political, but as somebody walking along the streets of Ecuador on a daily basis, you could say that, a lot of it that is on the news, we wouldn't know about it if it wasn't on the news.
Yeah, it often is much blown out of proportion in the media. But I think, we monitor it, we work with Marcel, and we would never take you somewhere that was unsafe or if there was a warning against that. So we'll be watching it, of course, and, staying up to date. But
just let me add that we have travelers on the ground now on a year round. So we do have travelers in Ecuador at this very moment, and they're traveling around the country. We visit areas that are safe. There is a lot of, Ecuador in the news that, about unsafety, but this is actually related to areas close to the border with Colombia, and mainly not saying that, there's something bad in Colombia, it's just the border areas. And of course, these are areas that we do not visit and that are not, part of the trips.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so nice about working with partners that have feet on the ground. You're there and can give us the local update. So that's very comforting for us to know. And I do know, hearing some feedback from our previous tours, just the wildlife on this trip is so spectacular within Ecuador itself, but also the Galapagos. If you love birds, Marcel touched a little bit about just all the different birds that you're going to see in Ecuador. The rainforest is just amazing. And then when you're on the Seaman Journey and traveling around, there is lots of opportunities, as he mentioned, to actually get in the water and do some snorkeling and sort of have those up close personal encounters. We will do a packing list before this trip goes out. But do you know, Marcel, off the top of your head, if the snorkeling gear is included with the boat, or would our customers bring their own? Or they rent it maybe there?
Snorkeling equipment is included.
Okay, great.
Yes, just it's important that, if somebody has large sizes or small sizes for the flippers, let us know in advance so that we can prepare for that, and we have the proper size flippers. All that is important to let us know. Now, what snorkeling equipment is included, also sea kayaks are included. There is the possibility of some sea kayaking. There's 4 sea kayaks on board. They're twin, so we would take turns, but yeah, those are included as well. Now, what is not included is wetsuits. Now, you'll be visiting in January. The water is moderately warm. A lot of people go onwards without the need of a wetsuit, but if you feel you need one, you can rent them on board. And again, letting us know about plus or really small sizes is important, so we just can prepare in advance and have them there available.
Okay, that's very helpful tip. Thank you for that. Because I know I would probably want to jump in that beautiful water and be swimming around. So, and it's great that they know they can rent the wetsuit. Just trying to think if we don't have any other questions in our chat box. I know, Marcel, you covered so much. Definitely inspired me. I love this shopping. I know when you talked about going to those markets, just a couple of the photos with those beautiful blankets and baskets. And when I was in Peru, I brought back a lot of that similar style of woven materials, and it's just so beautiful. So I would really love to go on this trip one day. It's on my list. I'm just trying to think what else. So maybe we can keep thinking about some questions. Marcel, if you don't mind, I'll have you unshare your screen, and I'm going to share my screen, and then we can do the draw for the book giveaway. Okay, so actually, let me know, can you see that, Marcel?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so what I've done is I have entered all of your names who's registered into this spinning wheel, and we're going to click it and spin for our book giveaway. So here we go. Okay, so we have a winner, and it is Trini Gee. So congratulations, Trini. And I will be mailing you that book. Actually, I have a picture. I'll just see if I can show you here. So this is the book. It's Wildlife of the Galapagos. It's the second edition. It's an incredible book. It is a nice travel size, but just will be wonderful to take along so you can really learn about all the flora and fauna and all the wonderful animals that you're going to be seeing and learning about as you go along. And Marcel did mention that you will have guides with you, local guides that will join you. Of course, our Wells Gray tour guide will be with you from the day you leave till the day you come home to sort of handle all the ins and outs, but we'll be hiring all those local guides, which is wonderful just to have the expertise. And then we do have one more question. Is there much chance of seasickness on a catamaran? That's a great question. I was wondering the same thing, like how rough are the waters out there?
Well, you got to take into account that you are sailing in the ocean. So you're navigating in the ocean. A catamaran and is a quite stable boat because of the way it's built. So when you're docked inside because most of our daytime, this is important to notice, we'll be inside small quiet bays. So when we serve we'll be in meals. We're in a quiet bay. We're not navigating. The boat is actually staying put. And since it's a small boat with not a very large keel, so it doesn't have a lot of depth. It can dock inside quiet bays during the daytime. So you're actually, and being a catamaran, that gives a lot of stability there. When you're sailing, the catamaran is also quite stable, but there is movement. There is movement. That's going to be at night, though. The sailings will be at night because most of the time, that's one of the beauties about cruising around the Galapagos. It's different than, regular ocean cruising. You're going to spend most of your daytime off the boat on the island. So the time that you'll be on board is between crossings, and the longer crossings are at night. And now we don't sail until everybody's done with dinner. So once dinner's over, then we'll start sailing at night. And and guests usually are already in bed because you're waking up early every day. This is an early wake up trip. That's one thing that I have to warn you about. We'll be getting you up at 6 a.m, having 7 a.m. breakfast, and have you on the islands at 8 a.m. That's the advantage of sleeping on board, because you actually get on the islands early, and then we're back on board around 11. We avoid the midday sun so you don't get too sunburned. And animals are very active in the morning hours. They're not as active at midday. We have lunch on board, and then we're back on the island in the afternoon. So you have a lot of time off the boat in the daytime, and then at night you have the longer crossings. Now, it is advisable that if you are prone to motion sickness, anybody that's prone to motion sickness, regardless of the boat that you board in the ocean, you do have the possibility of getting seasick. You can ask a physician about, taking pills or having an ear patch or a wristband. These are homeopathic, and they all work. They work great. But one important tip is that if you are going to take seasickness or motion sickness, medicine, it has to be taken at least 2 hours before you board. That's the secret to it. If you take it 2 hours before, you're ready, and once you're on board, you won't be affected as much.
Yeah, I've used the sea bands before. I'm quite prone to motion sickness, so they work well. We don't sell this in Canada, but any of our clients, if you're going to the United States, there is a medication called Bonine, and it's a non-drowsy. We unfortunately just can't get it in Canada, but it has Dramamine and it works so well. I get very sick and I use it, and it's just chewable little pills that you can take and you stay alert. There's no side effects, which is wonderful, but it really does help with the motion sickness. So if you have questions about that, you can talk to me personally or email me about that. But it's just good to think about. You don't want to get out there and not enjoy yourself, that's for sure. Okay, we have another question. Are there any extra inoculations or personal medicines you would recommend from experience going to these variety of different areas?
What I can recommend is, you have you have insect repellent, sunscreen, and motion sickness pills. That's what I can recommend. Now, inoculations, there is no legal requirement for Ecuador for any of the areas we're visiting. The areas we're visiting, again, just one thing, a lot of people say, well, is there malaria in the Amazon and all that? There could be, but not in the areas we're visiting. It's not prone to that, because for malaria to exist, there has to be a large population, because the mosquito has to bite somebody that's infected and then transmit it on to somebody else. We're going to areas, for example, the lodge we're visiting, La Selva. The lodge has about maybe 30 staff members in the area, and then you have another 30, 40 guests, and that's about 70 people there. Malaria outbreaks happen in locations by the coast or or by the Amazon areas where you have millions of people living there for the disease to be transmitted. So the probability of something like that having an outbreak or anything is minimum. The Galapagos, on the other hand, there is really no tropical diseases that are known in the Galapagos, because it's an island environment that is extremely cared for. You even have to wash your shoes and feet between one island and another, so that you don't transport anything. So the controls, even to reach the islands, when you're boarding the airport, the flight from Guayaquil to the Galapagos, they'll be checking your luggage to make sure you're not taking seeds or fruits. So the Galapagos themselves, you really don't have anything like that. And in the Andes, you're at a high altitude, where most tropical diseases are not widespread because of the altitude in that sense. So we're really going to areas that are considered safe. As I said, there's no legal requirements. Now, if you feel you need extra advice, you can contact your physician and they will let you know, anything that you would need.
Yeah, we like to always recommend, it's true, there's no required inoculations. That's what we have researched. But, if you wanted to visit your health clinic or physician, as Marcel said, it is always a good idea to make sure maybe you have some standard things like hepatitis updated, or, just those normal things. So it's a personal choice, absolutely. But I appreciate you following up so well with that, Marcel. Okay, we do have another question. Okay, I am 88 in fairly good health. Would this be an okay trip for me?
Okay, well, it really depends on you, actually, because there's no right age to visit, Ecuador and the Galapagos. We do recommend, I mean, for travelers be at least 7 years of age. That's one thing, it's a recommendation, not a restriction, just because of the enjoyment level. Now, there's no age limit on this. If you're in good health, yeah, we're extremely happy to have you join us. Just take into account, in the Galapagos and, in the Andes, I mean, if the hikes are optional. The walks along the markets are walks in, in rural and in urban areas. So it's not really any strenuous walks included or anything you'll be missing out on. In the Galapagos, on the other hand, there are certain hikes that are a little bit strenuous, like, if you're going up to Pinnacle Rock on Bartolome Island, that's probably the most strenuous hike we have. Again, it's maybe 400 meters, walking, but you should be able to walk a mile unassisted for you to enjoy the Galapagos, and most hikes will take between 1.5 to 2 hours, where you have to be able to walk unassisted. And that would be the main requirement. Now, for snorkeling, I mean, again, it's about, your ability to swim in the ocean. We also provide the possibility of snorkeling with a life vest on. So that's also something, and we also have our guide is always with us, either in the water or on the Zodiac next to us. And the Zodiacs are right next to us while we're doing the snorkeling. So there's always assistance. There's always somebody there to help you out. So that's one thing to take into account. So really, I mean, if you're in good health and as I said, you feel able to walk a couple miles without assistance, you're fine for the trip.
That's great. Thank you, Marcel. We do have our waiver as well with the itinerary, and it's just as Marcel mentioned, basically being able to walk unassisted for a certain amount of time. Know that there, it could get quite hot. You're out in the water. You're in Ecuador. There's uneven streets. Just getting in and out of boats, those kind of things. So you just want to make sure that you physically feel fit. We wouldn't want you to go all that way and not enjoy it. So we do ask you to sign that waiver before you go. Let's see, I think we have one more question. What temperatures are we likely to encounter in January?
I'm just gonna, okay. I just was checking on my conversion table only. But normally, while you're while you're in the Andes in Quito, and the northern part, you're actually going to have very mild temperatures. We're talking about, in centigrade in Quito, the average temperature is going to be between 18 and 20 degrees during the daytime. At night, it might drop to 12 degrees centigrade. Then in the rest of the Andes, well, in El Ángel, in the northern part, the temperature will be a little bit lower. So in the daytime, you're talking about 16 degrees, 14 to 16, a bit fresh centigrade, but at night it can drop down to 4 to 6 degrees, being a little bit cold. Now, the same around Cotopaxi. You're close to the volcano. Due to the wind chill factor, wind coming down from the glacier, it might come down to maybe 3 to 4 degrees, but the lodge is heated, so there's not going to be a problem there. Then during the daytime in the Andes, anywhere between 16 and 22 degrees throughout most part of the trip. Cuenca is going to be similar to Quito. In the Amazon, the temperature rises. We're talking about 24 through 36 degrees during, and occasional showers and rain. It's the rainforest. Rain ponchos are provided. Now, I can't tell you it's not going to rain. It's probably going to rain. But again, it'll be a downpour 2 to 3 hours, and then it'll be over. There will be days that it won't, but there will be days that it'll rain a lot. And that's expected in the rainforest, and it's part of the trip. Now, in the Galapagos in January, we're going in actually the warmer season. So again, temperatures will be anywhere between 26 to 36 degrees centigrade. And that's, starting around an average of 89 degrees Fahrenheit, in the Galapagos Islands. Now, this is considered the wet season. Now, what does that mean, though? And we have to take it with a grain of salt, because the wet season in Galapagos means there will be a downpour of 1 hour, and then the rest of the day will be sunny, clear skies. That's the Galapagos, because we're in an island environment and all that. Now, and that's the main thing about the temperature and the weather. So it is actually going to be very pleasant and warm.
Great. Okay, one more question. Is there an opportunity to do any laundry? That's a great question, just because this is a long trip. It's 25 days. Maybe you could, if there's properties along the way that have laundry services.
Yes, actually, when you're, for example, when you're coming back from the northern part, when you're going back to Quito, every day that's why we have the same hotel. You can leave, they have storage where you can leave some clothes behind and things like that as well. And, you can have some stuff washed on your ins and outs as well. And the Patio Andaluz Hotel does provide laundry service. So that way you'll be ready for, everything that goes along. Then after that, when we're going onwards towards Cuenca, we'll be staying at a hotel called Los Balcones in Cuenca. And they do have laundry service as well, in case, somebody wasn't able to do it, in that time. But you will have nights in between, different, geographical regions, at the main cities where you can do laundry easily.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's all our questions. If there are any further questions, please feel free to email myself. I can always forward them on to Marcel, and we can get the answers that you require. I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, Marcel, and really giving us a behind-the-scenes tour of what can be expected on this really fantastic trip. And we only have 8 seats left. So if you are interested, please just let your local office know, or myself, and we're happy to, navigate you any way we can if you are seriously thinking about doing this trip in January 2024. So looking forward looking forward to bringing people to see you. Oh, I think I had one more question pop in at the last minute. Yeah, here we go. Question about just the voltage and electrical. So what they would probably need an adapter, I'm guessing, and then also Wi-Fi, if there's Wi-Fi available along the route.
Well, all the outlets, most outlets in Ecuador, even on the boat and anywhere you're going, are 110. So you have that possibility. Now, there are some outlets on the boat that are going to be 220, but they're going to be labeled. So that's one thing to take into account. So really, I travel back and forth to Canada as well, and I don't need an adapter for any of my equipment between Ecuador and Canada. So there's not a problem there. Now, Wi-Fi is going to be at all the hotels. Perhaps the only location where you're going to have a little bit of struggling with the Wi-Fi is going to be in El Ángel, in the mountain lodge. Although most likely they will have it, but it's not going to be a great connection. Then in La Selva Lodge, it can be a little bit, up and down. Again, it's a natural area. You're in the middle of national park, but again, they do have, there is cell phone signal actually in that area. So if you get a SIM card, you'll probably have, it could actually be a backup for the Wi-Fi provided by the lodge. Then in the Galapagos, while you're on board, you will have intermittent Wi-Fi. Now there is Starlink installed on board the Seaman Journey. So yes, we have the antenna for it and everything. There is a small fee for it. Again, it's not going to be something you're going to be, live broadcasting because there won't be enough signal for that. But you will be able to send a few emails and messages and stay in contact and all that while you're on board the boat. Now, take into account that it's not going to be a great signal, and it can be intermittent. As you know, you're going to be on a small boat in the middle of the Pacific. But again, there is Starlink installed. We've installed it at the beginning of August. Actually, it's fairly new on board. It's been working great. There hasn't been any problems. I cannot say that, that will not change. With these things, in satellite connections, one thing about the equator, and this is important to notice, is that at the equator, there's not that many satellites as there is in the northern or southern hemispheres. So it can be, that's why it can be a poor connection. But again, there is Starlink on board the Seaman Journey as well.
That's great. I know it's nice. You want to keep in touch and touch base with people. It's a long time to be away, but I know sometimes these kind of trips, you're going to just want to unplug and it's so nice sometimes to not have the Wi-Fi and just when you're out in the rainforest or, out on the Galapagos, but to have that as a safety, a backup for sure is wonderful. Okay. I don't have any more questions coming in, so I think we'll wrap it up. I just thank you so much, Marcel. Really looking forward to doing this trip with you, and really appreciate you taking the time out this morning to chat with all of us. And yeah, we'll be in touch very, very soon.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me. I'm very happy that, you invited me and I was able to share all this information about the place I love, Ecuador and the Galapagos. And again, let Kerrie know if there's more questions. I'm very happy to answer them. Anything that comes up, she'll reach out and we'll be able to get back to you. And hopefully you are one of the lucky 8 people that can still sign up for the trip.
That's right. Don't delay, book today, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And everyone practice your Spanish. That was a good tip.